Okay, so we're live. Hi, everyone. Okay, we have. Okay, so here we have some people. Hi, you there, guys. Nice to have you here. So we're
Ron?
kicking with Data Working Therapist, our volume 2. And I have my guest, Max, and I'm Yulia. Nice to meet you guys. And we're going to talk today about why does the data SLA matter? So let me introduce my guest. So I'm having Max Ostapenko, a great expert with over 10 years of experience working with data, dearest friend of mine. And as of right now, Max is building global products at holding the position of product and data team lead at idealo. And you just can imagine how he merging these two big positions. I mean, I don't know what level of responsibilities you deal with. And the unique thing talking about Max is he is passionate about making things right, and you know how it's important dealing with data.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Looking
Yeah,
forward, yeah, to the chat and to the
sure.
questions.
Oh yes. So guys, if you have any questions, please put them at section like at chat section. We will answer them straight away, or maybe at the end if it makes sense. Yeah, thank you, Max, for joining. And talking about me, my name is Yuliia Tkachova. I am a data product manager. As of right now, building a startup called Must Haves, a data observability platform. And unique thing about me is I'm a data observability enthusiast. Yeah. So let's kick off to agenda. Today we're gonna talk a lot about SLA, data SLAs, and what are the components of service level agreements, what are the must-haves of data SLAs, what are the most common mistakes talking about service level agreement, and of course we will provide you with some template on how to build the data SLA at your company or upgrade it, and of course Q&A session. So let's start. Okay. So first things first, what is service level agreement? It's a public promise to deliver a qualifiable level of service. So why would we need a data SLA on top of that? First case, if the result of your product or service is data, in this case, your company will have service level agreement that actually equals the data SLA. The second case, if the data, when this data SLA needed in your company, when the teams at your company are heavily relying on data in their decision making, then it becomes an internal agreement between data team and data consumers in your company. But why would we need the data SLA in general? This is like data SLA is a tangible document to agree on what is high quality data means in the first place. On top of that, the rate of change in modern data platform enables makes data quality a moving target. Ambiguity of what data quality means can create tension and disagreement between data teams and data consumers. So data service level agreement is a crisp definition of what high quality data means and how it's going to be measured and what happens if the standards are not met. But you know what? It's easier to say than done.
Yeah. I would jump into this and say that, yeah, really ambiguity and the tension you mentioned, I think it's the main target of all of this SLA topic from my experiences. And yeah, I would also totally agree that the data impact on the operations grew considerably last decade, right? And we see many interesting approaches and frameworks being developed to try to solve this challenge. And yeah, basically, I think the SLA is a try to apply the development DevOps processes to the data context where data specialists are working to address the bugs, the leggy APIs, data processing pipelines, all of these yeah, time zone and data type issues that end up being having bugs in your eventual data results and in your insights. So yeah, that's an approach to try to resolve it from the operational perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But unfortunately, it has a low adoption as of right now. So we're talking
Yeah.
how to implement it in your company and actually to achieve good results working with your data. So let's jump into the next session, talking about SLAs. Telecom companies started to implement it back in 80s, and as of right now, it could be found beginning from Google products, ending up with Uber, etc. The basic increment of service level agreement is service level indicator. To put it nice and short, service level indicator is a measure of specific aspect of the performance. Max, do you have any nice example talking about service level indicator on top of your mind?
Yeah, let's start with something simple that is related to data accuracy, for example.
Yeah.
We could estimate it. We could estimate some metric as if the aggregated sales or budgets or costs numbers match between your data region, that, for example, Salesforce, and something where you use the data for your insights, so some data lake or data
Okay.
warehouse, for example. So aggregated number of sales, let's say, right? And this way, putting this indicator to this discussion would be really meaningful if you have some processes where you have some low margin, for example, and yeah, having an even smaller discrepancy in your returns, in your revenue numbers, may highly impact your ROI decisions, right? So if you're
Absolutely.
trying to get the small amount returns with big costs and you have discrepancies in those returns, that would be like a total waste of a data-driven approach. Or let's maybe also consider another example that is related to data compliance. So for example, we assume we have a data process, and in this data process, if a user didn't interact with us, with a company, with our service, for example, for 90 days at least, then we are bound by his by the terms of service to delete all of his personal identifiable data.
Yeah.
And then the indicator would look like a share of non-interacting users that have personally identified information deleted from our analytics data warehouse
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
to measure
So
the compliance.
yeah, just like some tiny thing, like a measurement. Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
see. Okay, so the next component of service level agreement is service level objective that actually gives each service level indicator a target range. And at this point, as you already touched the data compliance issue, I have a tricky question for you. So, what do you think? What do you think if we are having service level indicator for data compliance, as you just mentioned? Do you think it's right to set 100% as a service level objective for that kind of service level indicator, talking about data compliance? What would be your opinion?
Yeah, I think we need to touch here first why we're discussing this question of 100 or not. I think it's about the balance between reliability and flexibility, because it can come with a lot of effort to reach this 100.
Yes.
And yeah, I would say to this example, I would obviously expect it to be around 100% if you take the data compliance seriously, right? But I think this one is rather an exception. In many other cases, I would expect participants of this discussion to find a trade-off between being fast and having expected data quality as much as it's relevant to the business, to some parties being involved. And an honest conversation with the customer interest at its core is always really important to find the right SLO.
Sure. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, you need to balance. Always need to balance.
Yeah.
And
Understand each other.
of course, yeah, human interaction come first. Okay, and the third component, of course, is a service level agreement, which actually aggregate in a single document all service level objectives into one agreement. Yeah, so pretty easy. And talking about that, Max, what do you think? How many service level objectives should be in a single service level agreement?
Oh, I think it depends on the service and business a lot, to come from a little bit more generic perspective. But yeah, usually less is more. So focus on something that is critical for your customer, some critical pieces of your processes, and some metrics that are easily understandable, easily collectible. To start with something small. And in general, I would say you don't really need the topic of SLAs for at a granular level to just have a great quality of service. It should come by itself, but one or two SLAs per some critical piece of your business should be fine. And yeah, all of the if some data issue within this one is something that will threat your business, yeah, then it's definitely the time to sit down and have this performance discussed, defined as an SLA and measured.
Yeah, agree with you. Just talk to the business, talk to data consumers. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna jump to data SLA must haves, and what are the you know, most important things when you are setting your data SLA. So first and foremost, define what is good data. At this point, try to bring as much ambiguity out of this phrase as possible. Defining it in a correct and unmistakable term is vital. Define what the outcome of the good data for the businesses, what unique characteristics defining good data in your business and your company, and what characteristics define the bad data in your case.
Yeah,
What do you think?
if we're talking about the good data, I think it's quite easy. The simple way would be just to put it. Think if the data adds a clarity to you, or it confuses you as a consumer, obviously, of this data. And for example, we can apply to any data points. starting the major issue, I think, comes to the time zones discussions. That's always a complicated topic. So don't mix time zones when joining different data to measure your KPIs. Yeah, I think that should be clarified. One of the first. But there are easier examples as well. For example, when people are dealing with telephone numbers, yeah, if you're collecting telephone numbers for some actions, and you're in the context of an international company, just make sure to include country codes for the telephone numbers, not to rely on guessing which country then you some colleague of yours should call to. Yeah, but apart from the good or bad data, I think that there are also questions of when the data should be provided at the when it's a good timed data. Yeah, and many other questions that may be related to the qualities of it.
It all depends on your business, as we mentioned a couple of times already. So the second point, track if the data is available. Make sure you have a set measurements in place to measure what's needed. If not, make sure necessary metrics can be monitored in an automated way, to set the data SLA. The third point, identify the infrastructure you'll need to add. You know what? Be cautious about what you commit to. You cannot be everywhere and prepared for everything. Like once you set the SLA 99.99% uptime, it means you can have only 5 minutes of downtime each year. To deliver on that, you probably need more headcount, more visibility, more redundancies, and people working around the clock.
Yeah, I think this question of the it's just a matter of time when your SLA will be hit by some accident, by some outage, and you will be tested against are you providing really 99.9% of uptime or not. So you just need to wait for this to happen, and then you will actually know. So yeah, just consider all the details. I mean, let your product team, your engineers, to consider all of the complexity of your infrastructure, and for example, even your cloud provider SLA can impact the SLA that you can provide to your customers, right? So, for example, there are cases that we've been using some cheap cloud computing power, for example, AWS spot instances that may go down at any time for some data processing. It helps us to lower down our costs, but to make our pipeline unpredictable. So it would just be a sign, if you're doing the same, it would just be a sign that you need to decide either your infrastructure is not well suited for this critical process, or this process is doubtfully that much critical, if you're looking also to save with it. Or if it's both, you will need some really smart resource management when you want to save your costs and deliver the SLA at the same time. So yeah, look through all of the details of your infrastructure and your dependencies.
Okay. I love this smart cost management. I guess everybody needs it. So the first point, implementing data issue tracking management system. You'll need a tracking tool like Jira, etc. This allows the data users to create tickets, your team to track them, and you to understand the nature of those tickets and issues, so you can come up with long-term fixes and identify the trouble areas within your service level agreement, which is, like a common sense tool.
Yeah, the learn term thing, I think, is the main focus here. So you need to be aligned across different stakeholders and the teams, in the sense that you can prioritize, co-prioritize your efforts. Yeah, and when you look at your ticket management system and you see some SLA related tickets prioritized down, like pushed down somewhere into the backlog, then it's probably really a sign that this was a misalignment regarding what needs to be covered by SLA, or how did you understand it? There is some additional effort that you're wasting there.
Yeah, this is a clear sign that something go wrong. Yeah, there is a total misagreement. I agree with you. Okay, so the fifth point gonna be define the data owners. You may not want to specify in your public data SLA the data owners, but define the data source and pipeline owners. That those are people ultimately responsible if something go wrong. You need to know them. You need to understand who you need to call when something go wrong, right? And also specify what happens if those people go on vacation or simply leave the company. You need to have that plan B, in place.
Yep. And let me cover the service layer when you depend on something, right? So it's always a kind of a shared SLA that you have with your cloud provider or some services that you're using. If you are able to define your own SLAs, you will always be impacted by their outages. And just try to really have this transparent knowledge about your infrastructure, and the SLAs is just another way of transparently communicating some kind of service provided by your service providers as well that you rely on. So for example, if you're using some free tools, free services somewhere, that's a definite sign that there are no SLAs, and you should really tackle those with smartly. And those can't be built into your 99.9% SLA. Definitely, that will be a definite blocker.
That's again, smart management need to be in place. The seventh point, set up alerts. Set up alerts to post in your team messaging app, such as Slack or incident management, like a PagerDuty. The more incident detail you can pack into that alert, the faster you can diagnose on the mistake. Those alerts will tell you early who else you need to bring in, and it will easily help you to start the analysis of the anomaly, of the data anomaly. So it's just a vital thing to have in place.
Yeah, I think the alerts is just the core of all this discussion, one of the cores. And when you've already discussed what is a critical for your process, right? Just make sure you measure it and you have an alert, because, for example, data loss can easily turn from 2 minutes into 2 days if you're not paying an attention, and somebody went to vacation or somewhere. Yeah, the person that is really responsible for this data consumption. So yeah, please make sure.
Yeah, you sound like you had that experience already.
Yeah, I think everybody had some kind of these experiences. Yeah, just
it's happened to the best of us, So jumping into the eighth point, publish the data team incident response plan. Let's say a data consumer tells you that a table is broken on the dashboard. How do you confirm and respond on that? Write it out so when the incident actually occur, you don't run into that common problem when everybody assumes somebody else will handle it and nobody actually act on that. So you need to have that stages and process in place.
Yeah, I would mention here also this some kind of a term as an SLA budget, like some amount of time that you are safe, you're still within your SLA. And I think the incident response plan, how transparent it is to everyone, how aware is everybody with it, is a core, a single and main thing to stay within your SLA. So the speed of your reaction to the incident will be critical if you fail the SLA or you will deliver still the expected level of service. So yeah, the incident response, don't forget to go through this one when you're establishing an SLA. Otherwise, the first incident, will show you how well prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, jump into the ninth point. Communicate issue with data consumers. It sounds, like really common sense, but you have to communicate the status of your system. And also, please choose the channels that are relevant for the data consumers, not your data team. For instance, Netflix uses Twitter, but the Netflix coverage allow them to use Twitter, obviously. In your case, you need to come up with a great channel that actually fits your data consumer, not a data team. This is important because otherwise I won't know about something went wrong when you just post it internally in your Slack channel. So if something go wrong, just write, we're having an outrage. Here our estimate time to resolution. And it actually will diffuse a number of alerts from all your data consumers and free you actually to respond. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the customer success team or your support team will be thankful to that if we're talking about some public SLAs, right?
Yeah.
With this one, so public status page or something, I think, for me, it's the first thing to check when I think I experience some outage at my data provider. But yeah, if we're talking about internal, so yeah, it's just some quick Slack communication, some Slack message with all the parties involved would just help you to build the response to your incident the best way as well. So
Yeah,
I
totally.
think we're covering here the alert part once again. So it should be public and well timed, right? And there should be somebody responsible for keeping it up to date.
Oh, yes. Those cases when we hit the alerts that we are actually in outrage and never take it down. Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. 30 days
So,
after.
yeah. So talking about tense point is conducting periodic maintenance. So just please set up the maintenance periods where your team will review why things broke and brainstorm fixes. Ask why those issues were possible. Conduct non-fault postmortem. Document your findings. Assign those fixes and monitor actually how work. So like how they worked. You need to understand like the measure. Actually, it's measurement of the performance of your fixes. Yeah, just keep an eye on that. 11th point, which is it sounds pretty um, pretty necessary. Once you figure out all of those points that we just covered, you're ready to edit or review your data SLA, publish it publicly in your company wiki or Confluence So make it shareable. Secure, and once you make it, it secures everybody commitment and hold yourself to it as well.
Yeah, for a commitment, I would say that it's one of the things that may make it work if all of the parties concerned do provide a buy-in. So if you're pushing this topic, for example, as I don't know, head of data, pushing the data culture in general, for example, you'll need to get a buy-in from all the technical teams, and the importance of the data SLA should be understood well within the company to avoid such situations as some other company initiatives trying to push postponing some issues related to data outages and something else, or in general. It should be a transparent way to communicate what kind of impact these outages, these processes bring to the business. So in order to do this, you need to get a buy-in to transparently communicate it across all the departments and all the stakeholders. And then it will bring up the motivation of the teams delivering these services, right? To also help them to achieve this focus of, okay, what kind of experience our service needs to develop and how it's critical, how much additional complexity we need to put into architecting our services.
Yeah, I love the point you brought in. Like having the SLA published somewhere at Confluence, deep down somewhere at Confluence or Wiki, doesn't create commitment. What creates commitment is buy-in. Yeah, just this is a nice point, Mark. Thank you for covering that. Okay, so let's move forward, and we're going to tackle the service level mistakes you want to avoid. This section is not just about the data SLA, but overall SLA mistakes you want to keep out of. Okay, so first one is not understanding the business point of view. Like the vivid example at this point would be the data team would focus on delivering data in near real time and cover that with service level indicators and service level objectives, while the data consumer, on the other hand, would need the data on a weekly basis. So you need to balance between what are the limits of the infrastructure, what are the limits the data team encounter, and what are the business needs. So you need to understand, you need to compromise on what is possible from data team side and what's needed and what are the priorities from the businesses. Yeah. The second point, no ability to measure. So you need to have the way to actually calculate your service level agreement in a clear, understood, and easy to use tool and processes. And once you fail to do that, it usually results in ignorance of service level agreement and its management overall.
Can I share some example with this one? I think, so an ability to measurement basically is uncovered when you're discussing the metrics and your process. And as we've covered already a couple of times, you need to understand your dependencies. So it's quite a tricky way to identify, to develop indicators for your processes. And I would really suggest to follow SMART framework, some SMART goals framework, right here to follow. And any ambiguities should be discussed and clarified. This is generally a helpful practice to have. among the consumers and providers, right? So the expectations meet. And one of the examples you can't really build your assumptions with when you have a data pipeline, right? And your data is coming from an external data source, let's say. You're not able to know when this data becomes available on the third-party service. And if you try to develop some assumption to the time when it becomes available for you internally, for the consumer, then you're failing here. Obviously, the first thing to check here, I think, if this data source has an SLA, right? This should help you if your data source has an SLA. If it doesn't, then you're starting at the wrong, from the wrong, to evaluate it from a wrong perspective. Yeah, so try to have it with something that you really have confidence in and that it's easier to measure. Yeah, then it will help your developers basically to put this into a software development process and yeah, develop some formula to make sure their software matches what you expect. Yeah, but if there's some missing knowledge, yeah, there is no metric you can measure.
Yeah, totally makes sense to me, Max. And moving forward, the third point would be viewing your service level agreement as one-time exercise. So you just need to understand that service level agreements are not static. Achieving the right business outcomes through service level agreement is like a marathon, not a sprint, and it's actually an ongoing part of IT core competences, right? So the team need to make sure that service level agreements and its measures are aligned with the business and business needs and priorities that actually evolve through the time. Yeah, nothing is static. The first point is failure to establish service level agreement upfront. An agreement involves creating a shared understanding of desired service delivery and its quality. So, given the level of data transformation and spending cuts across IT and businesses lines, it is critical to confirm the expected outcomes of the data and its quality or services wherever you just provide. Because otherwise, in the end of the day, the data consumer is going to be disappointed in results. Like not maybe data consumers, but consumers overall.
Yeah, I would join here to share that you may consider having a perspective of SLAs in your mind before when you're sitting with your data architect and developing something, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe you will see a totally different value if you can have some established SLAs available at the time when you architect, when you just design your pipelines, or as opposed to the time when you already built it. It may be two different approaches. It may save you a lot of time if you just sit down and together with your ideation stage, just have some ideas on what kind of leverage you would have if the data quality will be predicted, well predicted and well defined. You will know it beforehand. It will help to choose the best tools, the best implementation strategy as well.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Max.
So
And
yeah, upfront definitely.
yeah, it's good practice. And the fifth point is having too many SLAs. So defining too many SLAs, first of all, it may impact each other, and in the end of the day, it will be difficult for your team to understand which are the most necessary and prioritize and actually manage it. Like having too much of those well, it won't be crispy and clear what is more important. Just treat it as your North Star metric. Choose something really important your service provide and create measurements for that and embed that in your service level agreement. That will help. Yeah, and I also wanted to add that this SLA mistakes list can be as long as you want. Yeah, those 5 points are just the most common that we encountered during our experience, both me and Max. Just this list could be endless. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to, if somebody's watching and would be able to share either publicly or privately, I would be really interested in learning from mistakes. Thanks.
Oh yes. Oh yes. This is what we are here to share with us your knowledges, share with us your mistakes, experience. Hit us with a message on LinkedIn. Yeah, we would definitely would like to pick up your mind as well. Okay, moving forward. Actually, the conclusion and what we would like to cover and summarize what we've gone through. Like formalizing written data SLA data service level agreement, make your informal commitments concrete and mutually agreeable. Every data relationship involves informal commitments. We both know it, like somebody expects from you something. And whether you state them or not, there are some expectations to the data. And oftentimes, the parties can agree to something without realizing that they are talking about different things, right? So, what is actually the data SLA? It's a simple written document that should include, first of all, purpose. Why does this service level exist? What is the issues do we expect to solve with it? And how we are hoping this service level agreement going to be used. Like, cover those things.
Yeah. For the promise, I would say it should uncover, what you promise into other teams. Yeah, what you're really committed to deliver. Yeah, the deep commitment is critical here.
Absolutely. The measurement. How will you measure your data SLA? Who will measure it? Yeah. And what does the SLA time frame? You also may include there the other attributes and objectives as well. Just put it in written, right?
Yeah, for the ramifications, it's definitely what happens. Yeah, when there is an accident and you've missed your data SLAs. Is it public? Is it internal? Who is responsible? And what sort of remediations available? What are the consequences?
Yeah, you got to write it down. Yeah, to manage expectations again. And what
Consequences
does
that are possible and that are out of scope.
and requirements, of course. What do we expect in return? Who are you promise conditional, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So for to have some commitment under all of these discussed topics, right? We need to have some kind of signatures, just to clearly state who are the parties involved, data provider, consumers. If you don't have an automated way of delivering your SLAs and you rely on some manual process, who are those people that will take give your hand to deliver this expertise, this experience level.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Max. Okay, and talking about takeaways and tools that might help you to facilitate data SLA within your company. Currently at Must Have, we are building a data observability platform that monitors and measure data health at the data team environment. So once anomalies happened to any tables within the data team environment, Max had alerts and notified data team that something went wrong. So Max had and like helping data teams to first to know when something go wrong, and first to fix those mistakes. Not to hear from the data consumers that something went wrong. We don't want you to be in that situation. Mass had also helps to identify upstreams and downstreams of the data that were affected with inaccurate data. And this must-have pipeline functionality helps instantly to know what data consumers were affected with data anomalies, which is like a really great tool. And if you are interested in this kind of tool, just hit me with DM in LinkedIn. I will gladly assist you and cover all your questions if you have one. Yeah, right now we are at the beta stage, so we're looking for the pilot users. Hit me with a message. Yeah. Okay, we're moving to the questions and answers section. And if you have some, please post them. We will gladly answer. If you don't have some, or you didn't came up with something as of right now, you can reach out both to me and Max over LinkedIn. We will gladly assist you with any questions you have regarding data or data service level agreement. By the way, Max, I guess you've gone through like few processes of setting down the service level agreement in few companies, so you are experiencing that, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the standard approaches to set the data processes in the company, to set the data team and set them in a comfortable position, also with known stakeholders, with known dependencies, with an expected level of the service to provide, so that it's first of all clear for the team. It's clear for everyone depending on that. Yeah, it's one of the things to have it there when you really depend on the data in your business. So yeah, it was an interesting and challenging discussions, definitely, and also a lot of learning.
Oh yes, a lot of learning. This is
Yeah.
what we love. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. And if you have any questions, just hit us. We are LinkedIn, Max and me. We will gladly assist you with your questions regarding data observability, data SLA, so on and so forth. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thanks everyone watching. And thank you, Yuliia, for inviting me. And yeah, looking forward to any questions. I would really gladly learn or participate in some discussions moving the data SLA topic forward.
Max, thank you for joining. You're a wonderful guest. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.